A shocking case of anti-Jewish hatred, anti-Israeli hatred revealed today. Another example of the bile that's being directed at Israel against its people and its supporters. And it needs to be called out. In this case, first it was reported by Janet Albrechtsen and Ellie Dudley in The Australian. And the watchdog for lawyers in New South Wales has been urged to take action against a barrister, Nicholas Poynder, with a complaint from the Australian Jewish Association claiming he's not a fit and proper person to practice law. Now, I don't know about hounding this bloke from his job. There are plenty of activist lawyers who run some pretty spiteful lines on various issues. But certainly Poynder's public statements ought to be brought to wide public attention. I mean, you might want to consider whether this is the sort of bloke you'd want to hire as your barrister. You can still see his hatred on public display on Twitter, or X as it's called now. When an Israeli swimmer was booed at a swimming event in Doha, of all places, Poynder tweeted, "Good. No Israeli should ever feel comfortable again outside their apartheid, genocidal pseudo-state." This barrister has also referred to Zionists as our souls, which is about as juvenile as it is offensive. He's also tweeted about being in Israel during the Intifada, and he says he saw the Israeli people as they really are, as racists and bigots. At this point, it's probably worth pointing out that Poynder worked for a number of years as a lawyer for the New South Wales Human Rights and Equal Opportunity Commission. So typical, isn't it? These hard left types pretend to be tolerant, but they push bile against their chosen ideological or racial targets. In response to a tweet declaring that 1 million Israelis do not equal 1 Australian, Poynder tweeted, "That's the way a lot of us are leading." In another tweet, he declared that Israelis are subhuman. And still another declares that Israelis are monsters who don't deserve their own country. Now, Poynder claims to oppose anti-Semitism, saying he hates Israelis, not Jews. And he goes on to call Israelis spine-chillingly evil, no longer human, and descending to a mindset closely equating to braying animals. Most people will find it hard to go along with his subtle distinction in this endless diatribe of hatred and bile, as he accuses Israel and Israelis of practicing and barracking for genocide, even though it's Hamas, which is founded on the aim of genocide, the aim of eradicating the state of Israel and the Jewish people. So what does Poynder say about Hamas? Well, incredibly, he's even described Hamas as absolute heroes. And search as I could on his Twitter feed, there was not one post of grief or of sympathy or of outrage over the savage slaughter, torture, raping and kidnapping of Israelis on October the 7th. Instead, Poynder tweeted posts justifying the terrorist atrocity as some kind of freedom struggle, and even suggesting that many of the deaths were actually perpetrated by Israel. Anyway, there he is, a barrister at Frederick Jordan Chambers in Sydney. There's a look into the heart and mind of Nicholas Poynder. The legal professional authorities can make of this what they will, but rather than cancel this bloke, I'm happy just to bring his words to the public square, to show them outside of the cesspool of Twitter and out in the real world where real world standards apply. And you can make your own mind up about him. I contacted Poynder today and he said we need to be careful not to confuse opposition to Zionism with anti-Semitism. You won't find any of the latter in my history. He also defended his lack of reference to October the 7th and said he was appalled at what occurred, but said Israel's response is disproportionate. Familiar phrases, aren't they? Exactly what is the proportionate response to the savage slaughter, rape, torture and kidnapping of more than 1,200 people, men, women, teenagers, children and babies? What is the proportionate response to a terrorist army that is committed always to kill Jews and eradicate Israel? Still, getting back to Poynder's tweets, It is a bit of a stretch to argue that calling Israelis subhuman and scum and arseholes is not anti-Semitic but only anti-Zionist. Imagine the reaction of authorities, of governments, of police, and yes, even of human rights commissions if Poynder or anyone else was saying this about Catholics or Muslims, or Americans or Japanese. The only way to fight this hate is to expose it and call it out.